Welcome everyone to Tales from the 90s, your trip back to my favorite time period, the 90s. We've been at this for a while now, episode 44 today, so obviously I do one a week. I think there's been 2 weeks that I've missed due to being sick, but usually every week here on Wednesday, whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or listening on Spotify, we're here talking about everything about the 90s. And the way I do this, if you've never seen this before, I'll go through this quick because I tend to ramble a lot, as you'll find out. But I pick a random month and a random year for the 90s, and we go from there. I have different categories I look at. I'm huge into wrestling, so definitely be talking a lot about wrestling today. And just different pop culture things, important news items, and some of my own personal memories of things I did then, or just memories of the things. This isn't like a history lesson. It's just I give a little bit of facts on it and then my experience. But anyway, we also do a bunch of bonus episodes. Right now we've had 3 parts of a 4-part series where I give my top 40 favorite Tales from the Crypt episodes. Tales from the Crypt, obviously Tales from the 90s is a takeoff of that. My favorite TV show ever. Usually I talk about it on here when the episode, if it's a month that the episode's aired in. This doesn't happen to be one, so I really won't be talking about Tales from the Crypt in this. But that's fine because this coming Friday is the end of my Tales from the Crypt series. It'll be numbers, my top 10. And you'll see the Crypt Keeper intros and outros on those too. I hope you guys have been enjoying those. And like I said, usually do one bonus episode a month. But that one was so freaking long that if I'd have made that one video, it'd have been 4 or 5 hours, so nobody would have got that time to sit through that. So anyway, it is September as I'm filming this, but there is a bonus episode for September besides my continuing Tales from the Crypt series, which, like I said, is going to end, so I guess it ain't continuing. Rambling already. But anyway, for this month, because back when I was a kid, we went to school, when we started school in September. We didn't start in freaking beginning of August like they do now. So my September bonus episode is just called Back to School. I don't really have a format for it. Just giving my just memories of school, not just going back to school, but of just school. And I've been to a few different schools. Moving different cities, not like every year or anything, but a few of them. So I'll give my just my take on everything that happened, and also a little bit about back to school. Everybody remembers the back to school time, the shopping for school clothes and supplies and the anxiety, especially starting middle school, just all that kind of stuff, give my experiences. Maybe some of the younger generation watching can see, what it was like, compare and contrast, some of the things may have changed, some are different, obviously. Like, obviously the biggest difference is the technology. Like, we had, each class had one computer if you were lucky. Nowadays every kid gets a computer. It's like mandatory. Here's a computer, and it's like if we would have known that back then, that like everybody gets their own freaking laptop. Like, laptops were huge freaking technology then. Not only rich people had, just like cell phones, only rich people had them then. But anyway, we'll go into that then. Also, always posting me singing on here. Been using that Smule app to record with other people and record songs. Really fun to do. One of my favorite things is music. So music and wrestling are my 2 favorite things, I guess you call them. But anyway, also got just other series on there. I just recorded a Jackasses of the Week. It's just my ranting series about this idiot that I had to deal with that accused me of running a fake wrestling page. If you watch the video, you'll find out. It's on Facebook right now. It'll be on YouTube soon. 25 minutes. If you just want to hear somebody rant for 25 minutes, watch that. Anyway, done with this ranting. I'm going to get to talking about this week. I haven't even mentioned what episode we're in. Well, I mentioned the episode, 44. But we're going back to March of 1994. So all that out of the way, here's my intro I made with some AI music a long time ago.
Marathons, wrestling wars and morning yawns. Play kickball in the street, man, those days can't be beat. Tales from the 90s never die.
Yeah, that's right. March in 1994. Last week we were in March in 1997. So this is 3 years prior to that. We'll see how different the world was then. Which it seems like the 90s, you go through the decades, even from year to year, it seems like a lot has changed. Anyway, this is our 6th episode into 1994. At this time of March of 94, I was 10 years old and in the 4th grade. And I'll talk a little bit about my 4th grade experience. My teacher was Mrs. Weiss. Could not stand her. If you guys know, if you guys are wrestling fans and know what Harley Race looks like with that hair, or if you don't know wrestling, the little kid from Bad Santa, that curly blonde hair, she almost looked just like that kid and Harley Race. It looked like that could have been like him or Mrs. Weiss and Harley Race had a baby, and it was the kid from Bad Santa. But besides that, the physical like, you know, as a kid, you're always like, oh, look at my teacher, look at her hair. We always called her Miss Rice because her hair looked like rice. Anyway, she was freaking. She hated me. I know everybody says their teacher hates, but this woman hated me. Like, I got in so much trouble in her class all the time. Which is probably why she hated me. But I was getting into trouble everywhere. Like a little bit of my backstory if you've never seen before. We had an abusive stepdad. His name was Mark. We call him Marky Foe. Don't know why. I really can't remember why we call him that. But anyway, it was around this time he was starting to show his true colors and you know, start getting abusive and stuff. But if you know anything about this podcast, I normally look back at this stuff in like a funny light. It's, you know, it doesn't upset me anymore. I've forgiven it all. You know, I just have fun with it now. But it was during this time that all that really started. And I'm not like Mr. Innocent here because I did a lot of stuff to get in trouble. It's just a lot of his stuff went overboard. But the thing I'm going to talk about now, I've talked about before. But like I said, big into wrestling, especially WCW. Well, my dumbass decides I'm going to start stealing wrestling magazines from the store because I can't afford them. Yeah, genius. But if you've never heard this story before, it shows how idiotic I was as a kid. Probably still am. But, okay, I don't think the store had cameras then. This is way before, I mean, you try to steal a little piece of candy these days, they'd catch you on 7 cameras. And if not, somebody's probably got their phone doing some stream next to you doing it. But anyway, I would take these magazines and like put them down my pants leg. Well, one day I got caught. And there's a UDF in Norwood, which luckily I didn't get banned from because I love that place. And I'm sorry for the millionth time. I apologize to these people. Like I said, I'm lucky they didn't like ban me from there. But anyway, the police get there. Now, this is around this time. This is March of 1994. Now, we moved there, I want to say around December of 93. Yeah, because I was in the middle of 3rd grade. And this is March of 94, so getting towards the end of 4th grade. So I've been there over a year, okay? Well, the police show up, and I tell them, we just moved here, and I don't remember where I live. And I live 2 blocks from here. So the police are like, well, I'll take you to school, because that's where I was heading anyway. With my stolen wrestling magazine, because, you know, I was really paying attention in class. So, we walk in, and the first person we see is the secretary. Okay, now it's like, oh, it's the secretary. The secretary lived on the corner of my street, okay? So not only does she know me from school for over a year, I'm like 3 or 4 houses from her. And the police like, this kid claims he doesn't know where he lives. And she looks at me, she's like, Jason, you know where you I was so dead and busted. And my parents got called, and I got beaten, and I won't put any blame on anybody on that one. I probably deserve to be beat on that. No, I'm not advocating beating kids. I'll get that out of the way. I'm not saying, like, you know, I'm just making a joke there. Just to let people know. But yeah, absolutely stupid. And then I've told before that later on I would go to another store that's not there anymore. I don't even know if they're in business, Thriftway. When I was in middle school, when I would like master stealing these magazines. Like, I'd put them down my pants leg, and like I said, there's no cameras, and then I'd go buy like a thing of gum or some candy or something, and it just looked like I'm there buying something, and I never got caught doing that. But I almost wish I would have, because I deserved it. Stupid. Like, I'm not advocating stealing at all. You really can't these days anyway. But like I said, stupid. I'm not, I mean, I guess I am trying to tell a little bit of that to be humorous, but at the same time, it really shows, where I was going, because, I don't want to, this could cause this, but, the crappy stuff that happened at home really had me, like, lashing out, and it lasted a while until I was probably about 17 or something. I started to wise up, but from, like, 10 on, it really got bad later on. Like, I didn't get into drugs or anything like that. I never, violence or anything like that, other than wrestling my friends at school. But, it could have went bad. If I'd had like a really addictive personality, maybe I would have got messed up on drugs. But I'd always made a vow to myself. I remember from like a little kid, like, I'm never going to do that stuff. And I know a lot of kids do that, and they end up doing that stuff. But I don't know, just drugs, alcohol, smoking, none of that ever appealed to me. I've drank, I don't even know, probably less than 10 alcoholic things in my life. Never been drunk, and I don't think I've drank anything in like 7-8 years. Anyway, there's my PSA on don't just say no. I did say no. Anyway, that just a little bit about that. And like I said, I'm not trying to glorify that stuff. Just everybody's got their stupid stuff they do as kids. As long as when you grow up, and I'm not telling kids to do what you want now, but I'm just saying, if you do something, I do a lot. If you do something stupid, as long as later on in life you learn from it and grow and not continue down that path, then you'll be all right. If it's the people that escalate that, that start ripping off cars and stuff like that, then you've got problems. But like I said, just a little bit of backstory of that 4th grade year. Like I said, just crazy stuff, and I'm too dumb to be a criminal. I'm telling you now, especially as a kid. Like, that don't matter what I did, I would have got caught. But talk a little bit about sports. Being March, it was spring training for baseball, and I normally don't start talking about baseball until the month of April on these things, because who cares about results of spring training then? And of course, 1994, everybody remembers in August, baseball will go on strike until, beginning of next year, and cut part of that season off at the beginning. And baseball was really, like, dead, basically, until, like, 98, when the McGuire-Sosa home run race really kind of brought people back. But there's one thing I want to talk about, is the Michael Jackson. I don't want to talk about that idiot. We know what he's done. If you can tell, I'm not a fan of his. I'm talking about Michael Jordan. I'm sorry, Michael Jordan, for even accidentally saying your name wrong. You definitely are not in that category. Anyway, the Michael Jordan baseball story, because everybody looks back like, oh, Michael Jordan tried to play baseball. He found out he can't do everything. But looking into it, it was kind of fascinating. Obviously, he decided to retire from basketball. He was just kind of burnt out, and his dad had been murdered. So, he had a lot going on in his head. He just really, and, that was his dad's sport, They were, best friends, and, basically got him into it at a young age. So he decided he wanted to try something else, and he'd always loved baseball. So, obviously Chicago Bulls, he's going to sign with the Chicago White Sox. So they assigned him to the minor leagues, because, he wasn't, he hadn't trained his whole life to be a baseball player, so it's not like he just automatically even as a celebrity. Obviously they plan on bringing him up at some point. But, he was assigned to the minor leagues. I think he hit around 206 or something, not like anything major, but still. Take anybody from freaking off the street that never played, I'm sure he played baseball in high school or something. Or he might have, I don't know. Maybe as a kid in Little League. But, take anybody and put him on even a minor league baseball team. You're in there with people that have played their whole lives and are trying to get to the major leagues. Obviously they're going to, 206 is not bad for somebody that's not their sport. But anyway, from what I'd read, he was super nice to everybody. There, obviously he's a superstar, transcended sports at this point. Can't remember if Space Jam had been out or if that would be later, but if not, it was close. But even without that, he was still a household name. But you imagine that, especially in the minor leagues, people wanting autographs. Terry Francona, who manages the Reds now, was actually managing the White Sox minor league team at the time. I think it was Double A. I don't even think it was Triple A. I think. But, he said that he didn't act like a superstar at all. They, minor leagues, they don't have, I don't know how they are today, but they're probably about the same. They don't have the huge hotels and, I don't even think they fly. They just go on buses, although that might have changed by now. But anyway, he didn't, obviously he had the money, but he didn't stay at any, giant hotels while the rest of the team, he stayed with the team. There'd be people asking him for autographs all the time. He would tell people to leave their things they want autographed in this room, and he'll sign them, and that everybody would have their stuff at the end of the day, and he didn't charge anybody for it. And he knows some of them that were selling them, and he was fine with it. From everything I've seen, he was trying to fit in to be a baseball player, not trying to play superstar. But he is a superstar. But anyway, the stupid strike happens, and they want to bring in the baseball wants to bring in replacement players from the minor leagues to play. Basically crossing the picket lines. The whole union thing, and him being in basketball and being a part of that union, he knows what it's like for the players, so he refused to do it, and that basically pretty much ended his baseball career there. The next year he would, quit baseball before the season even started and go back with the Bulls and, of course, win more championships. But, so I always, I'm sure other people have heard, oh, Michael Jordan tried to play baseball, ha, ha, ha. But if you look into it like I did, it's fascinating to see that, what almost turned into a joke is I feel bad for a millionaire, but I mean, you can feel bad for people. Just because people have money doesn't mean they don't have their own struggles. Like I said, his dad was murdered, and he lost, the passion for the thing that him and his dad bonded over the most, and, he was trying to go out, how can you not, feel for the guy? Doesn't matter how much money he has or how famous you are. At the end of the day, we're all human beings. And take care of yourselves and each other. If you get that reference, Jerry Springer's final thought at the end of the day. All this crazy stuff, and then he gets all philosophical on you. Sorry, not trying to be Dr. Phil on here. Anyway, we'll get back to the sports. Like I said, fascinating story, though. It's funny the stuff you look up that all I heard as a kid, oh, Michael Jordan trying to play baseball. Ha ha ha, it didn't work out, And then you look up the story, it's like, wow, that's fascinating. But anyway, a little bit, not too much going on in the sports other than that. Like I said, baseball, getting into spring training. Ultimately, it meant nothing. The Reds were, poised to be in the playoffs that year, too, but of course. I think we got there next year in the playoffs. Yeah, 95 we were in there. We didn't go to the World Series or win it or nothing like that, but that was the last time we were in the playoffs. I don't remember. We might have been 99. I can't remember. I know 2010 we won the Central, but anyway, who cares about that? It's 1994. Stay in our time machine. If you've seen this before, especially last week, because it was March last week on my podcast. The only time I watch college basketball or basketball of any kind is college basketball during the March Madness tournament. My three teams are Ohio State, because I'm a huge Buckeyes fan. UC, University of Cincinnati, that's from my city. Everybody loved UC, and Xavier, which is a smaller college, but pretty well known in college basketball. And they were like at the very like end of our neighborhood. Like it wasn't like walking distance. Like we could ride the bike. And when I finally get to that story when I talk about the Olympics in '96, my story about actually seeing the Olympic torch in person is pretty cool. It's pretty funny, some of the details behind it. But anyway, that was like that far down. We miles on the bike. But anyway, that was Xavier College. But this year, only one of my teams made it to the tournament, and they lost in the first round. UC lost to Wisconsin 80-72. The Final Four that year was Florida, Duke, Arkansas, and Arizona. And Arkansas beat Duke 76-72 to win their first ever national championship. And like I said, that's about my extent of basketball there. No offense to basketball fans. And like I said, everybody knew Michael Jordan and all his success, and I didn't even watch basketball. I think everybody was sort of like basketball fans in the 90s, even if you didn't actually watch it. You're just like, that it was so weird. Like, and like that, you always see that thing online. Like everybody seemed to have the Charlotte Hornets like jacket coat thing. I even had one of them freaking things. Like those were everywhere. But anyway, a little bit more sports news. NASCAR. Ernie Irvan won back-to-back races. He won the Pontiac Excitement 400 at Richmond and the Purelator 500 at Atlanta Motor Speedway. And then Dale Earnhardt, obviously one of the greatest legends of all time. Everybody knows the tragic thing that happened to him in 2001. But he won the Trans-South Financial 400 at Darlington. And then he would go on to win his third championship that year. So, big year for him. 3 of 7. So, he obviously had, if he hadn't died in 2001 in that car crash, who knows how many more championships he would have had. But we're going to talk about some kids' meal toys now. Everybody remembers those. You always wanted, that was, as a kid, it was like almost as important, if not more important than the meal, was the toy that came with it. But out for the month of March '94, there's definitely quite a few of them this week, because sometimes it's hard to find the info on them. McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's are the easier ones, but the other ones that had toys were Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, and KFC. And those are kind of hit and miss of whether you can find the information for that. But I actually found all of them this week. McDonald's Happy Meal, of course, the most well-known. And even when you go to another restaurant that has toys, I don't even know, do restaurants even have toys anymore? Like, I don't think anyone does besides McDonald's. If I'm wrong, let me know. It might be the last one left. But anyway, the Happy Meal toy was from Bobby's World. Love that cartoon. Fox Kids, one of the very first, if not the first, Fox Kids cartoon whenever Fox started their Saturday morning cartoon lineup. And it was on during weekdays. But anyway, Bobby was like in a different vehicle, his iconic tricycle, big wheel, I should say, not really a tricycle. I mean, technically a big wheel and a tricycle all have 3 wheels, but everybody knows the big wheels. He's got the big wheels. That's why it's called that. The tricycle is more like a regular bicycle. Anyway, he's got him in his big wheels and other vehicles, and then you can snap on like a little, another vehicle on top of that to turn into like a second vehicle. So I guess they're called vehicle shells or something like that, but pretty cool toy there. The Burger King Kids Club, which was like their attempt to like appeal to little older kids than McDonald's, like preteens, teenagers. They had like these kids that were, I can't remember what if they had names or anything, but they're trying to get them over as character over. I'm talking wrestling talk. But they're trying to get them, popular like the McDonald's characters like Ronald and Grimace, but obviously to relate more to kids, they have just this group of kids. But anyway, these were the Kids Club Sports All-Stars, and it had the Kids Club members playing different sports like hockey, basketball, football, soccer, and frisbee. And they each had their own little stand that they stood on, and the little like a hockey puck or frisbee or just that kind of stuff. Wendy's had something called Cyber Cycles. They were a set of different pullback like motorcycle toys. You know what I mean? Pull back by It doesn't really work that well on carpet, but if you have linoleum or wood floors, you pull it back and it goes. You really burn yourself with those if you freaking rev it up too much. I don't even know if they have those type of toys anymore. Anyway, Pizza Hut had something from a cartoon called Marsupilami, which I don't remember if I'm even saying that right. But they had a jump rope, a yo-yo, or a glow ball you could get. So, pretty good toys there, especially if you like the show. I never even heard of it. Taco Bell had Jungle Mix-Up toys. It was a set of 8 different toys that were like different animals. They weren't all from the jungles, like they had rhinos and stuff like that. But the front half and the back half would be like different, and they snap on. I got all these. You could create all these different hybrid, freaky jungle mix-up toys. A pretty cool set there. And KFC didn't really have toys. They had Looney Tune mugs, like these big mugs. There was a set of 4 of them. There was Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Taz, and Tweety Bird. But and with those, sometimes with those, like with cups and stuff like that, you had to pay an extra, not just get the meal. You had to pay extra for them. But that was what they had that month. So a lot of good stuff there if you were rich enough to be able to hit all those restaurants in that month, which the average kid like me didn't. Average kid like me hardly ever got a kid's meal or got to eat out. But if you're able to get all those, and you can find all this stuff on eBay for relatively cheap too. It's crazy. Like I thought this stuff would be thousands of dollars, and it's like $5 even inside of the original wrapper. The plastic bag for it. We're going to talk a little bit about TV. Let's see. If you guys, I don't know that they still do this or not, but they came out with the Pay TV Content Advisory System went in effect this month. And it's not just the ratings like the TVMA and stuff like that, but the actual like content. Like if something had adult content, whatever it did, it had the rating, and then it had these like letters. Especially if you remember seeing this in the 90s on HBO, Cinemax, and just like pay TV, so it was cable. It wasn't just the premium channels. It was also like TNT, TBS, USA. Say for instance, something had adult content, you would see AC. Brief nudity would be BN, and whatever it happened to have in it. Just as a further warning to people, like not because TV 14, for instance, could mean. That's there because of violence. It could be sexual activity, language, but and some parents would like, it's okay if there's a little language, but if it's obviously if it's like sexual activity, I don't want you watching it. So it would say on there what's on there, so that way parents can judge for themselves whether the kids can watch it, or the kids would just go sneak and watch it anyway. But anyway, yeah, that came out then, and I don't have a problem with that, or the parental advisory sticker on, it's. I'm not one of them people that definitely not one of the people that think that video games lead to violence, or movies, or song lyrics. People are going to do what they're going to do. A song that isn't going to tell you to go out and, I gotta care what to say, unalive somebody on here, or I seen a TV show where they did this, so I'm going to get a gun, I'm sure there probably have been instances. I'm not saying that could have never happened. But 9 times out of 10, it's got to be, and even the one that was influenced by something they seen or heard, obviously has to have something wrong with their head. A normal, well-adjusted person is not going to, I watch wrestling all the time. I don't just go walk down the street and try to put somebody in a freaking ankle lock. My brothers will be like, you don't? Not anymore. That's a whole other story I have to tell. At the times I forced my brothers to wrestle, and my mom literally called the cops on me once. I'll tell that probably next time. But anyway. Oh, there's the siren. Siren. I should either start recording before or after that stupid thing goes off. Anyway, we were talking about TV. I was talking about the stupid stuff I did as a kid again. But one other thing that happened in TV was Viacom, which is obviously a TV company, took over Paramount, which would later create the UPN network, and that would start next year. But that took over wouldn't take over, but became part of our local channel 25, which was known for showing ECW late at night, and these like Hawaiian tropic like bikini competitions and stuff like in the middle of the night, and they would have like the 1-900 numbers that, oh my god, I got in so much trouble. Okay, let me get into another story. Sorry, I'm getting another personal story here, but let's just say those 1-900 numbers, if you're from my time period, you probably know which ones I'm referring to. I got in so much trouble for calling these numbers, and like I was like I don't know if I was this time. It was a couple of years after this, actually. Well, no, 90. I don't know. Yeah, I think it might have been a couple years after this, but I didn't do it for any like. I wasn't actually trying to talk to these people, because you imagine as a 10-year-old, my voice is not as deep as it is now, so they would have known I was a kid instantly. But I would like hear the woman start talking and then just hang up because I'd be too scared to say anything. But that's not even where I got into most trouble. Those are just more expensive. I would constantly call the freaking 1-900-909-9900. If you remember that as a wrestling fan, Mean Gene was talking about that every freaking week on WCW. I think he actually got proceeds from that as part of his contract. But it was a wrestling hotline where you would call in and wrestlers would talk to you, pre-recorded things, and there's trivia and the latest wrestling news that either was probably mostly made up, but like rumors, this person from the WWF is coming here, and it just didn't happen. But oh my god, I don't know what I was thinking, because when the phone bill came, boy was I dead. But yeah, that just reminded me of that. But anyway, back to UPN. Like I said, they would they would be like a syndicated thing. They were like an NBC, Fox, just not as big, and they've been, bought out and name changed. I think they're the CW, I think is what it is now. I think that's, derived from UPN, and there's been named a bunch of different things. But anyway, that was where SmackDown originally was on, started in 1999. So, but like I said, our local channel was 25, and ECW was on at like 1 or 2 in the morning, which sucked because, I going to school, and nowadays 1 or 2 in the morning, like I'm literally just getting done with doing what I'm doing for the day and getting ready to have something to eat and watch TV before I go to bed at like 4 in the morning. Back then, 1 or 2 in the morning was like I barely could stay up then. Or maybe, some nights I got lucky and went to sleep, and then I woke up around that time. I was like, hey, I'm going to sneak down and watch ECW in the basement. We had the freaking, this under the stairs thing, like a little area that I cleaned out and put like a old exercise thing in there. It's kind of like the thing I'm real good with exercise thing. The thing you lay on to lift weights. A weight bench or whatever you want to call it. I put that in there to like sit on, and put a little tiny TV in there and sneak down and watch it. But anyway, that's when that happened. One debut this month was a cartoon called The Busy World of Richard Scarry, and I actually forgot until I read this that it was originally on Showtime. It debuted March 9th, because I remember watching it mostly on Nickelodeon. But I do remember it being on Showtime. One of the few times we were able to have cable and have to pay channels. But I just forgot it was like Showtime had that as a cartoon. It was just crazy to think about, like all the movies and the after-hour stuff they have. But in the morning they got Busy World of Richard Scarry, which if you ever seen that cartoon, it's definitely not adult at all. It's they put it on Nick Jr. on Nickelodeon. It was a great cartoon. And sad news of note: John Candy died March 4th. He was filming a movie and he died in his sleep from a heart attack. Now, as a kid, of course, I watched Camp Candy, and he was in, I remember him being the polka player in Home Alone, among other things, obviously, Uncle Buck. But as a kid, I'd always heard that he died because from eating too much. Like, I guess, I don't know if people were trying to tell you this to scare you, but that's what I heard all the time is like, I didn't hear he died of a heart attack. I heard he died from eating too much. And it scared me as a kid. It's like, oh my God, I didn't know that you could die from eating too much. Obviously, he died of a heart attack, and, it was obviously weight was one of the factors, and it was a genetic condition he had too, and his other habits, which I'm not going to disparage him because, from all I've heard, he was a very nice guy. He did that Home Alone part for barely anything, as a favor to the director. His, I guess, his extracurricular, I guess you call them, activities aside. If I'm the type of person, if somebody dies and they've done horrible things, I'm not one of them. Oh, bow down to them, they never did anything wrong, but at the same point, if it's something like that, there's no sense like, oh, he was a drug addict, he did this. But anyway, all that to say, like I said, I always heard that he died from eating too much. It scared me to death, like, because I was like, sometimes I would get full for like a meal, like my stomach hurts, literally in the back of my head, sometimes be like, oh no, I hope I don't die from eating too much. I just realized it was people trying to scare people into not being fat. But anyway, we're going to move on to music now. Sorry I'm taking forever on these. My favorite music is country, but I give the Billboard, the pop charts information on here just, as a point of reference, because a lot of people out there listen to it. Obviously, it's popular music. The 100. If you've seen last week's episode, you know why Hot 100 is such a funny word to me. Or words, numbers, whatever. I can't language today. Or ever. Number one for 1 week, and also 3 weeks back in February, giving it 4 weeks total, was The Power of Love by Celine Dion, which I just watched Titanic again the other day, so obviously everybody knows the song from that. That's been going through my head since I watched that. And I can't stand this freaking song. It's just annoying to me. It's number one for 3 weeks, and then 1 week in April, so 4 weeks total for it too, was The Sign by Ace of Base. Oh, I saw the sign. I hate that freaking song. It is so annoying. Anyway, I was listening to the American Country Countdown with Bob Kingsley, Sunday mornings at 9 a.m., and number ones for this week, or this month, were I Just Wanted You to Know, Mark Chestnut. Great song. He was on a huge run there, especially in the mid-90s. Mark Chestnut, one of the great voices of the 90s. Speaking of that, Trying to Get Over You by Vince Gill was number one for 2 weeks. Talk about a voice there. That man could sing, he could play. I mean, he was so revered, in not just country music, but music general, that the Eagles, had him join the Eagles after Don Felder left the group, or was fired, or that's a whole controversy there. But after Glenn Fry died, I think he joined them even before he was. I can't remember, but anyway, he's like one of the Eagles now. Like, that's how legendary his voice is. Don't sue me, Eagles. I'm just talking about you. If you don't know what that's a reference to, they like not just copyright, where it's you can't monetize it on YouTube, but literally gave me I got a strike from covering 2 of their songs. So they're obviously hard up for money. They want to sue me. But anyway, still love the music. Sorry. And then No Doubt About It by Neil McCoy. Another great from the 90s. That was number one. And album release this month was Tim McGraw's Not a Moment Too Soon. It was the second album, and really the album that put him on the map. It isn't the one that made him like super household name. I think his album Edward. Shut up, dogs. Dog's got to make an appearance in this one too. His album that came out in '96, Everywhere, was like to me, still his best album ever. But this one was pretty big. It had 5 singles released from it. His first album, he had a couple singles, but they didn't hardly do anything. But this album came out, and he went like, became a star overnight almost. Even though it wasn't overnight, obviously. A lot of these artists, you think oh, they just come out of nowhere. Well, they haven't come out of nowhere. They've been, at it for years. Nowadays, you can make, and I do this too, so I'm not criticizing, but you can like make videos on YouTube or TikTok or something and get signed to record deals, if they even have those. I don't know how they do music anymore. If you've heard some of this music today, I don't know if they even consider it music. I don't. Anyway, old man rant about music once a week is over. But back to Tim McGraw's Not a Moment Too Soon album. It was, like I said, the second album. It went 6 times platinum, which means it sold over 6 million copies. It was number 1 on country and the pop charts, which is rare, especially for an album like this. It didn't sound any kind of pop or crossover. Of course, Tim McGraw these days, in my opinion, doesn't make country music. I don't know if his wife doing pop music and just being rich has changed him, but his music, auto-tune and rap and the worst of the so-called bro country music today. Like, I don't... Come back to country music, Tim. Make an actual country album again, please. But anyway, it was the best-selling album of the year. Top 5 in the Billboard 200 chart, which covers all genres of music, and it's usually just the pop music in there. He was top 5 in that for the year. Won the ACM Academy of Country Music Awards Album of the Year that year for his album, and it was ranked 63 out of all country albums of the 90s. So, just how big of an album this was. The 5 singles he released, the first one was Indian Outlaw, and I know today that's politically incorrect, and people blast the song, but it was like, that song was everywhere. You knew that song all, like, no matter what genre of music. It only went to number 8, but it was like huge. And then his next one, his first number 1, was to me probably one of his best songs ever, Don't Take the Girl. Everybody knows that one. I sung that at karaoke when I was like 8 years old and won a t-shirt from our country station B105, because they were like doing like these like dancing and stuff, and I didn't do the dancing. They had one more shirt to like, and they had like a little mini karaoke competition, and that was the first one I ever, excuse my burp, first one I ever won. One of 2. But anyway, it was like this like not glow in the dark, but almost that glow in the dark looking green with like B105 written in like pink on it. It's like, and they only had like a triple X shirt, and I was like a little kid then, so this thing looked like almost like a dress on me. I just wore it at the house. I wasn't allowed to wear it to school, or I would have, dork as I am. But his next single, Down on the Farm, went to number 2. The next one, the title track, Not a Moment Too Soon, went to number 1. And then Refried Dreams, which is kind of like a funny song, trying to sound like refried beans, which Cletus T. Judd, if you know him, the guy that does country music parody, he made Refried Beans song. And if you see my channel, Cracky Dave, he made his own version of that Cletus song. But anyway, that went to number 5, and that was like a novelty song that if he would have released that on his first album or before, his first single from this, I don't even know if it would have charted. But just based on how popular he was, that song made it to number 5. And this is a good song. It's just one of those so-called novelty songs that everybody seems to hate, which I don't. But next we're going to go look at the Nickelodeon lineup. I choose these dates at a random date of the month. And this one happens to be a Wednesday, March 9th of 1994. And, when we do these, I start at midnight, so we're obviously in the Nick at Night time period. We got Dragnet, we got Alfred Hitchcock Presents, which I loved, The Adventures of Superman, The Donna Reed Show, F Troop, Bob Newhart Show, Dick Van Dyke Show, Mary Tyler Moore Show, Dragnet, Alfred Hitchcock Presents again, The Lucy Show, which my mom loved, and then we got Roundhouse, which was a kind of a variety Nickelodeon kid show at 5:30, and then we really start the day on Nickelodeon like then, but at 6, one of my all-time favorites, Mr. Wizard. Mr. Wizard's World, if you've never seen that, it's like a science show where, I can't remember his real name, but they call him Mr. Wizard. He teaches like science experiments. Really good time period there at 6 in the morning, because we were all in school. So if you got up at 6 in the morning getting ready for school, you see something educational. And then after that is Lassie, so you definitely learn from that too. And then at 7 we got Dennis the Menace, that 80s cartoon that I love. 7:30, What Would You Do? The Mark Summers, who hosted Double Dare. It was hosted by him, and it was kind of like a game show, variety show, all mixed into one. There was things that the cream filled pies getting thrown at your face from like either the pie pod or the pie coaster. People doing things, talking to people on the street, guessing that if you've never seen it, I think they might have. I don't know if they have full episodes on YouTube or just clips of them, but definitely check that out. It was definitely it screamed 90s Nickelodeon, that show. And then we got 8 o'clock Muppet Babies, one of my favorite cartoons. At 8:30, The Alvin Show, which is what I think they renamed Alvin and the Chipmunks to The Alvin Show at this time, before it would just be called Alvin and the Chipmunks again. I think they were just trying to rebrand it. I think. If I'm wrong on that, let me know. And then at 9, we got Sharon Lowe. 9 o'clock starts Nick Jr., by the way. Because that was from 9 to 2, I think. Because it was when most of the kids are in school, and the only kids would be home would be like either preschool age or younger. But we start with Sharon Lois and Bram's Elephant Show, which was the Skinnamarink Dinky Dink, that song. Just like folk music and kids singing along and teaching lessons. It was really cool. Then we got Janosk's Dream World. What the heck is that? I've literally never heard of that. I'm going to look that up right now. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right. Janosk's Dream World? Based on a West German animated children's television series originally aired from 1986 to 1990. I'm going to click on the page here about this, the Dream World. It's based on Janosk's Traumastude. I'm butchering everything here. But based on the works of German artist and children's book author Janosk. Series was directed by blah blah. They don't even have much information on it. I don't know if you've ever seen this, or I'm sure there's probably some people out like, oh yeah, I remember that. When you're saying this wrong, you don't know about this. Just like I do with stuff like Eureka's Castle, which is literally next. I didn't even see that, and Eureka's Castle is next for an hour. Love that one. Then we got Muppet Babies again. Then at 11:30, one of my all-time favorites, The World of David the Gnome. And that was, I believe, was it a Spanish cartoon, I think, that they dubbed in English? Just, I guess, like that German one was. But, based off of, like, books that had come out, and I believe the books were originally Spanish, too. And then we got Capelli and Company. I think that's another one like the Sharon, Lois, and Bram. And then we got Magic. Never heard of that one. I'm going to look that one up. Just called Magic. Magic, Nickelodeon shows. Just add Magic. That's new crap. I'm talking about... I can't seem to find it. It keeps going and giving me that just add Magic, one of them new Nickelodeon crap I can't stand. Sorry if you like it. But I don't know what that was. There goes my dogs again. Then we got... Stop! Then we got Eureka's Castle again. The little... Chili! Enough! Then we got the Little Bits, which I'd never watched. And then kids starting to come home. We got Flipper and Lassie on. Transitioning to the kids coming home. And then 3, we got one of my favorites from the 90s, Hey Dude. Love that freaking... About the teenagers that go to work on this ranch run by this like accountant. I think it was an accountant from New York City that wanted a change, and now he's running a ranch and clueless. There's a couple there, like another adult, and then the teen Danny that's from the area that know what's going on there, but the rest of them are just trying to figure it out. Then we got Wienerville, hosted by Mark Wiener, my brother Josh's favorite. It was a basically just a bunch of puppets and different variety skits. It's hilarious. Then we got Looney Tunes on Nickelodeon. Followed up with Wild and Crazy Kids. Again, that one's kind of a mixture between a game show and field day at school, if you remember that. No real prizes or anything. It's just, kids competing at different activities on 3 different teams. Kids and teenagers. And then we got Salute Your Shorts, which is sort of like Hey Dude, just instead of being set at a ranch, it's set at a summer camp. And just a lot of fun with there. Then at 5:30, we've got one of the all-time greatest Nickelodeon game shows, Legends of the Hidden Temple. Everybody from my era remembers that one. All the different challenges, and it was almost a guarantee that whoever was going into the temple wasn't going to win, because a lot more lost than won at that. I looked it up before when I did my top 50 Nickelodeon shows of all time. I actually had the number of people that actually lost compared to the ones that won, and it was like huge difference. Then we got Looney Tunes on Nickelodeon again, and then one of the original Nicktoons, Doug, a dog going crazy outside. Then we got Bullwinkle's Moose-O-Rama, which is basically just Rocky and Bullwinkle, just given a different name for Nickelodeon. And then at 8, because this time go to bed, kids. We went back to Nick at Night. We got The Partridge Family, Mork and Mindy, I Love Lucy, which is not the same as the Lucy Show, but obviously still starred Lucille Ball, Bob Newhart Show, Mary Tyler Moore Show, Dick Van Dyke Show, and then they end with Get Smart. So that's our Nickelodeon lineup on just a random Wednesday in March of 1994. And talk a little bit about TGIF, what was going on there. Their big show at the time was Family Matters. They were in season 5. Boy Meets World was the next show, and they were in their first season. There was only 2 episodes this month because in March, you're getting towards the end of the season. March is the kind of time where you're not going to have an episode every day like you wouldn't like September or October. You're getting towards the end, so reruns of this and preempted by this. Anyway, the episodes this month were the first one was where Corey and Sean were babysat by Feeney, and they were trying to sneak in now somebody's sawing outside. What's next? We're gonna have a freaking helicopter land on the roof? Anyway, Corey and Sean were being babysit by Mr. Feeney, and they tried to sneak in like this R-rated movie, and then they would like switch off to like nature show when Feeney would walk in the room. Meanwhile, Eric had took his driver's test but failed, but like his dad was like super proud. I'm gonna let you borrow the car Saturday night to go out, and Eric, 1, wanted to borrow the car, but 2, didn't want to look stupid in front of his dad that he didn't pass the test, so he took it. Ended up getting it towed, I think, because like they parked where they weren't supposed to, and they couldn't get it out of the impound lot without a license, so whole debacle there. And then the second one was Corey's birthday, and his dad gave him his like necklace from when he was, I think it was like silver gloves or something, from when he boxed in the Navy, and I think it was Eric had gotten like a pocket knife when he turned, I can't remember what age it was. It might have been 13 something. But he got a pocket knife, and Corey's like, I got a necklace, didn't think it meant anything. Anyway, meanwhile at school they're like doing scuba diving, and he like lost his necklace in the water, and once he finds out, how important the necklace was, and what it meant to his dad, the reason he gave it to him, he went back to the pool by himself and almost drowned. Feeney had to save him to try to find the necklace. But anyway, I love that show. Next is Step by Step. They were in season 3. And then the final TGIF show was Hanging with Mr. Cooper. They were in season 2. Now I'm going to move on to wrestling. I got a lot to talk about here so I'm going to try to not spend too much time on here because we're almost an hour into this thing. I'm sorry. But the big show this month, and not the big show, well, not him. He wasn't even wrestling then. March 20th was WWF WrestleMania 10 from Madison Square Garden, the 10-year anniversary, back where WrestleMania 1 started. the very first match was Owen Hart versus Bret Hart, brother versus brother, and Owen Hart got the one, the 1, 2, and the 3. He got the win. Bam Bam Bigelow and Luna Vachon defeated Doink and Dink. That was basically like a comedy match. In a weird match, Macho Man Randy Savage defeated Crush in a Falls Count Anywhere match. Now, today, if you watch wrestling, Falls Count Anywhere just means, no rules, you can pin them anywhere. Basically like a street fight, except for some reason, street fight, you have to pin them in the ring. Falls Count Anywhere, you pin them anywhere else. I don't know why street fight is different. But anyway, this one wasn't just the regular Falls Count Anywhere. If you pin your opponent outside the ring, you weren't just done. You had to get back in the ring within 60 seconds, or the match continued. I don't know where they came up with that. Luckily, they didn't keep that. WWF Women's Champion Alundra Blaze, before she took the title to WCW and dropped it in the trash can, defeated Leilani Kai. Men on a Mission, one of the freaking most dangerous, and I mean that, and not like, oh, they're dangerous, like dangerous to other wrestlers because they weren't safe to work with. Tag teams defeated WWF Tag Team Champions, the Quebecers, by countout. So, obviously, by countout, they didn't win the titles. WWF Champion... Now, see, let me explain here. At the Royal Rumble, which this time had been the first couple years they'd started, or it might have been the year before they'd started, where the winner of the Royal Rumble gets a shot at the WWF title at WrestleMania. Well, this was the year that Lex Luger and Bret Hart both their feet went out at the same time, meaning they their feet touched at the same time, so there was like basically a tie. So like, how do we solve this? Well, we're gonna have they're both gonna get a title shot at WrestleMania, but this was before like triple threats, so they didn't do it that way. They would have done that these days. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna have you're both gonna get a shot at the champion in separate matches, and there's gonna be special referees. But in order for this to be fair, first we're going to, because of the problem with Bret and Owen, we're going to have you two face off at the beginning of the show, and then we're going to have Lex Luger face Yokozuna, and the winner of that will face you. So basically, to win the championship, you had to wrestle twice that night, no matter what. That's why they had the Bret Hart-Owen Hart match too. But anyway, the first of those championship matches, WWF champion Lex Luger, he defeated Yokozuna, but he won by, or no he didn't. I should say Yokozuna won. Sorry, I got that wrong. Yokozuna won by DQ. Mr. Perfect was a special referee, and he basically turned heel. The managers for Yokozuna, which was Jim Cornette and Mr. Fuji, were like distracting the referee, and Yokozuna cheated. Or not cheated, Lex Luger had him pinned, sorry. I had that backwards again. Lex Luger had him pinned, but the referee didn't make the count, Mr. Perfect. And he pushed Mr. Perfect, and Mr. Perfect instantly disqualified him. Basically, he was turning heel. But yeah, Lex Luger, he shouldn't have pushed the referee anyway. That's kind of stupid. But yeah, he ended up losing there. And the match is kind of just like in the middle of an important match and another important match. Like, let's throw this thing in there. Earthquake defeated Atom Bomb. It's like, whoop-de-doo there. Sorry, no offense. And then we have what's known as one of the greatest matches of all time, the iconic ladder match between Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon. Shawn Michaels had been Intercontinental Champion and gotten injured, I think, and then they had like a tournament or some way that Razor Ramon ended up winning the title, and then Shawn Michaels saying he's the rightful champion. So anyway, to solve that, they put both the Intercontinental titles up, and they had I think it was the first ladder match in WWF. Not the first one ever. But I think it was the first one in WWF. If not, there was another one. But it was the first televised one I know. And it stole the show and was like iconic. Still iconic. No matter how many great ladder matches they've had. And they've had a lot of great ones. No matter how many crazy falls people have taken off ladders, through tables, and everything else. And through other ladders. This is always going to be known as the number one. I guarantee it. And they didn't even do anything crazy in it. But, and then the main event saw Bret Hart defeat WWF champion Yokozuna to win the title. Roddy Piper was a special referee in that one. great ending there with the hero celebrating with the title that he'd lost the WrestleMania the year before to Yokozuna when that Hulk Hogan somehow ended up walking away with the title. That whole debacle, WrestleMania 9. But ECW had an interesting event. No WCW pay-per-view this month, or Clash of the Champions. But on March 26th, ECW held a event, I think the only one they've ever had, called Ultimate Jeopardy from Devon, Pennsylvania, wherever that's at. Now, this is when they were still Eastern Championship Wrestling, before they were part of the NWA. It was or maybe before that even, but it was before they went to Extreme. But they had this event called Ultimate Jeopardy, and parts of this aired over 3 different episodes of Hardcore TV, which is the TV show they put out, like the one I was talking about watching. It was syndicated different areas. It didn't even, at this time, I don't even know if it was in Cincinnati. It was probably just in the Philadelphia, New York area, and then it branched out. Even towards the end, when ECW was at the height of their popularity, I don't know if ECW was available in every market other than when they got on pay-per-view. But anyway, the main event was Ultimate Jeopardy Steel Cage match, and it was a 4-on-4 with teams, and each person had their own unique stipulation that would happen if they lost. Like, I'll go through these. The teams were Shane Douglas, Mr. Hughes, and the Public Enemy versus Terry Funk, Road Warrior Hawk, Kevin Sullivan, and the Tasmaniac, which of course would later just shorten it to Taz. And the stipulations were, if somebody pinned Terry Funk, who was the ECW heavyweight champion, they would win the title from him. If Road Warrior Hawk lost, he could no longer call himself a Road Warrior. That's kind of just like you can't call yourself a Road Warrior anymore. I mean, I guess it was a pride thing, but compared to Funk losing his title, that was almost... if Kevin Sullivan or the Tasmaniac got pinned, they couldn't team together anymore because they were a team. Same with the Public Enemy. Let's see. If Shane Douglas got pinned, he got his head shaved. And if Mr. Hughes lost, his manager, Jason, not me, would be locked in a cage for 5 minutes with everyone on the opposing team. Well, Shane Douglas's team ended up winning, and Shane pinned Terry Funk, so he became ECW heavyweight champion that way. Like I said, unique stipulations there. Somehow still easier to understand than the WCW Uncensored that I just covered last week from 3 years in the future. Still less complicated than that match, which I believe they just stole from this match but did it horribly. But on March 12th, WCW Power Hour, which is one of their syndicated shows that they did just tapings of and showed highlights, because the big show on WCW at that time, again, not the big show, but their main show was WCW Saturday Night. This was before Nitro. But WCW Power Hour aired its last episode, and then the next week was replaced with WCW Pro, which was basically the same thing except more highlights than just like taped matches. So it kind of like went down in quality there. But WCW also had like a special tournament to kind of mimic the March Madness. It was called the European Cup. And I don't know for sure if they actually did this in Europe or anything. It's WCW, because I could see them calling something European Cup and having nothing to do with Europe. But anyway, Sting won the tournament defeating Vader. So it was like basically just to kind of counter plus go with the March Madness tournament. But there's a lot of title changes that happened in this month outside of the ones we talked about during the WrestleMania and Ultimate Jeopardy. But the Tasmaniac defeated ECW TV champion Sabu for the title on Hardcore TV. And at the same taping, JT Smith won the title from the Tasmaniac. And they just showed them on back-to-back episodes. And actually, when JT Smith won that, he was the ECW Maryland champion, like a regional championship. And when he won the TV title, they just kind of retired the Maryland championship because, nobody cares about a regional championship if you're trying to build a national company, which they were trying at the time. So it's like, WCW or WWE doesn't have like a New York championship. They have Intercontinental Championship. WCW had the U.S. Championship. The Maryland Championships, like, But anyway, Kevin Sullivan and the Tasmaniac defeated the Bruise Brothers to win the vacant ECW tag team titles. And they were only vacant because the two teams fought the month before, and there was like some kind of screwy ending to it or something. The titles were held up. So basically, it was just the same match, and they won the titles back. And then the night after that, at another TV taping, they lost to the Public Enemy, the titles. Hiroshi Hayes defeated WCW International World Champion Rick Rude to win the title at a house show on March 16th. And then Rick Rude would end up winning the title back. But the International World Title is what it was called, as stupid as that sounds. Basically, the basic history of that is they wanted to do a title change, WCW did, where Ric Flair lost the title to Rick Rude. But the NWA, which is still governing them, it was still their world title, didn't approve that. Well, WCW is like, screw you, we're withdrawing from the NWA. So the title that, that iconic big gold belt, as it's called, was, that was physically owned by WCW, but the actual title, like, name of the NWA World Heavyweight Championship belonged to the NWA. So that was taken off of that title, but they got, like I said, they got to keep the physical title. But instead of just calling that the World Heavyweight title, which they should have, they went and created their own WCW World Heavyweight title, and the titles look okay looking, but it's just, I hate that they did this, because they should have just made that belt the World Championship and said, Ric Flair was the last NWA World Champion of this era. Now he's the first World Heavyweight Champion of WCW. But no, they decided to make their own World Heavyweight title, and that belt went on, stayed with Ric Flair at the time. He lost it to Rick Rude like they were planning, but they decided for some dumb reason to call that the WCW International World Heavyweight Championship. So what is an International World Heavyweight Championship? Isn't that the fact that that's champion of the world implied that it's international? And how can they have this, like today they have the World Heavyweight title and the WWE title? That's less confusing than a world title and an international world title. Anyway, WC freaking W, early 90s. That's all I got to say. And then WWF, on March 29th at a house show, the crappy team of Men on a Mission defeated WWF Tag Team Champions, the Quebecers, to win the titles, and then they would win them back 2 days later at a house show. It's like, give them titles off them idiots quickly. But a couple other things to talk about. Something new I wanted to try this week. I know we're getting kind of long, and I don't know if I'm going to do this every week or not. But I found these like quizzes. They're made by people, so hopefully they're true. There's just like a 10-question quiz that I'm going to take on here, and we'll see how we do. You guys can play along too. And I just decided to do a wrestling theme. WWF the year 1994 quiz. And I'll like read this. I'm not going to put it on screen or anything. Which of these men did not help Yokozuna defeat Undertaker at the Royal Rumble in a casket match? Shawn Michaels, Diesel, Bam Bam Bigelow, or Jeff Jarrett? If you remember that was the match at Royal Rumble where they let me see, where they like everybody ran in. I'm gonna say which one did not help. Shawn Michaels, I'm pretty sure. I had to wait till the quiz is over to find out. Which wrestler did not enter the Royal Rumble despite drawing entry number 25? Oh, I can't remember that. I just watched the one from 91 when it was Macho Man. I'm just going to say Randy Savage for this one too. Maybe it was a running joke. We'll say Randy Savage. 1-2-3 Kid briefly held the tag team title this year with which wrestler? Marty Jannetty, Razor Ramon, Bob Holly, or Owen Hart? Since he was friends with him, I'm going to say Razor Ramon. How many matches did Bret Hart have at WrestleMania? If you were listening, we just covered that. I'm going to say 2. Which of these teams did not capture tag team gold in 1994? Men on a Mission, Head Shrinkers, the Smoking Guns, or the Quebecers? Based on what I just told you from that month alone, we know Men on a Mission and Quebecers did. So that means Head Shrinkers or the Smoking Guns. I'm going to say the Smoking Guns. These were 2 guest referees for the WWF title match at WrestleMania. Can you name both? And if you're listening, let's see. Mr. Perfect. And Roddy Piper. The new Undertaker, Underfaker, was introduced to the WWF by who? And that was Ted DiBiase. Two words, $1 Million Man. That was at SummerSlam. Or no, they fought at SummerSlam. The real Undertaker and the Underfaker. Who did Owen Hart defeat in the finals of the King of the Ring? And it says, parentheses, the 2nd year in a row defeated by a Hart. I don't know. I'm gonna say Razor Ramon. Which 2 wrestlers had to forfeit the tag team titles in late 1994? Diesel and guess Shawn Michaels. I don't know if it wants me to put both of these in there or what. This quiz is kind of confusing. Like the one before, it said Piper already. So did they just want Mr. Perfect? I don't know. Who is the challenger for the WWF title at Survivor Series? I don't remember that. I'm going to say Shawn Michaels. And let's see here. Number 1, I was right. Shawn Michaels didn't help Yokozuna defeat Undertaker. And I was wrong about the wrestler that didn't enter the Royal Rumble. It was Bastion Booger. Said he had a bad stomach. We were led to believe it was the injured Bret Hart, but he appeared a bit later. But he had a bad stomach. That's hilarious. 1, 2, 3 Kid briefly held tag team titles. Wasn't with Razor Ramon. It was with Marty Jannetty. I was wrong on that. They won from and lost to the Quebecers. Bret Hart had 2 matches at WrestleMania. Right on that. I was right about the team that didn't win the titles that year was the Smoking Guns. They didn't win them until next year. Okay, it says I was wrong about the referee. I put in Mr. Perfect. The correct answer was Perfect. So I'm counting that as right. Bull. New Undertaker was introduced by who? $1 Million Man. I was right on that. Who did Owen Hart defeat in King of the Ring? Razor Ramon. Right on that. Which 2 wrestlers had to forfeit tag team titles? Diesel and Shawn Michaels. I was right on that. And the challenger for the WWF title at Survivor Series wasn't Shawn Michaels. It was Bob Backlund. I forgot that. So, it says my score was 6 out of 10. But it was really 7 out of 10 because they were wrong on that one. So, I got a C. I suck. Anyway, we're going to finish up here. Sorry, this is a long one. Like I said, I probably won't do a quiz every week. But when I do it, it won't always be on wrestling. It'll be on other things. Just have to do with that particular week. Pretty fun stuff. You can... I forgot, I already closed the page. I'll put in the link to this, to the quizzes in this. You can check out all kinds of different quizzes. Anyway, go over quickly some movies that came out this month. Naked Gun 30... This seemed to be like the sequels month. Naked Gun 33 and a Third. The Final Insult. I freaking love the Naked Gun movies with Leslie Nielsen. Even though it had O.J. Simpson in them. At least he was getting brutally hurt in every single movie. Too bad it wasn't real. I won't go too much into Mr. O.J. there. March 1994, it was getting close to O.J. time, I think. But anyway, that movie's hilarious. You know, the trilogy, and they just came out with a new one. It's supposed to be like Frank Drebin, Leslie Nielsen's character's son. I haven't seen it yet, but I want to. It looks hilarious. D2, The Mighty Ducks. Of course, The Mighty Ducks became a huge movie, making hockey popular with kids, you know, that didn't already watch it. But you know, by the time D2 came out, it was like Mighty Ducks were like a household name. They'd eventually end up having an NHL team. I don't know if it was already there by then or would be coming, but they had an NHL team, the Mighty Ducks, and they actually had another team, and not the NHL, but another one of the lower hockey leagues, It was actually the Cincinnati Mighty Ducks, and I've seen a few of their games at the old Cincinnati Gardens before they tore them down, idiots. But yeah, I've seen them play a few times, so the Cincinnati Mighty Ducks, man, what memories I have of them. I'll talk about that on another episode, but the whole Cincinnati Gardens. And then the other movie that came out was Major League 2. Of course, everybody remembers Major League with Charlie Sheen, the Indians, the team that's like sucking, and then they start winning. The owner, the woman that owns them, wants them to go bad so she can sell them. When they end up winning, and they come back, and like Charlie Sheen's character's like changed. He was like this, like he'd just been released from prison, you know, but he could throw the ball like 100 miles an hour, which nowadays is like normal in baseball. Back then it was like, wow. Nowadays it's like, oh, 100, you need to go faster. Anyway, but in this movie, like after he'd gotten popular, you know, he gets this like girlfriend / like agent that she like has him doing all these commercials, and you know, he's like totally changed from the way he was. Like basically he's just gotten too big to, you know, be friends with his teammates. But anyway, they try to bring it back together again. Great movie there. The one Goosebump book that came out this month was, I didn't put which number it was, but it was Why I'm Afraid of Bees. And it's regarded as not one of the better Goosebump books. They didn't even make a episode on the series about it. It's about a kid who's like dorky and wants to become popular. He's picked on by his, I think it's his neighbor, who like knows he's afraid of bees, so he's like puts these bees after him. But anyway, he finds out from the early 90s internet through a chat room on there that there's this like magic thing he can swap bodies. So he tries to swap bodies with a popular kid, but a bee comes in the room and he ends up becoming a bee, and just it's not very good. Sorry, R.L. Stein, not one of your best moments. But anyway, that'll do it for this week. Sorry, I hit my Power Ranger back there. A giant Power Ranger. I don't know why I had it there for this week. Didn't talk about the Power Rangers. But they were out then. I think they were, 93. They were probably still in their first season. You know, one of the greatest times of Power Rangers. But thanks for joining me. Sorry, if you like the quizzes and want me to do more of them, let me know. If you don't like them, there's some on here, you know, I take all comments and suggestions. I really like having the feedback so I know what to do. Or if I'm doing something you don't like me doing, you know, I'll see if I can do it better or just not do it, you know, depending on what it is. But anyway, thanks for joining me. Next week, we're going to be on episode number 45. We're jumping ahead a couple years. We're going to go to June of 1996. It's only my second time going into 96. And 96 is my favorite year of all time. But I was 12 at this time and getting ready to go in my first year of 7th grade. But hope you enjoyed this. Any other type of videos you want to see from me, let me know. Any ideas for bonus episodes? I got the rest of the years set up, but let me know about next year. And it don't have to stay in the 90s. That's the thing with the bonus episodes. But anyway, thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next time.
And now, I predict the future. Next week, you'll be in the same time, same place, same station, for another hideous, hateful haul of horror.